For 60 minutes as the designee of the minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend the remarks and include any extraneous materials on the subjects of this special order.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to give special recognition to the members of the Democratic caucus that have been able to accomplish many things in spite of the sound and fury of dysfunctional politics in a small but vocal part of the House Republican Conference. As I stand here in the People's House, I am struck by how much congressional leadership matters and how divided the 118th Congress has been. We have been here without question, living in perilous times. And in times like these, what we do in this chamber matters in the lives of American people. The people of our district did not send us here to perform theatrical acts. They did not send us here to posture for the cameras. And none of us were elected here so that we could increase the status and the stature of our personal media profiles. And yet that seems to be the total measure of what this Congress has amounted to. The 118th Congress and the year of 2023 has been unprecedented. Earlier in this year, Leader Hakeem Jeffries made history as the first man of African descent to be elected the leader of a major political party. But almost immediately, chaos erupted. The Speaker's vote was a mess. Speaker Emeritus McCarthy was elected after 15 rounds of votes. 15 rounds. It was the first time in a century that an election of a House Speaker took multiple ballots to complete. And it was the longest vote in the United States history since 1855, lasting 133 rounds, just over 2 months. I will say, though, our honorable leader, Hakeem Jeffries, did receive 3,179 votes for Speaker across 15 rounds. The hits just keep coming as we rolled into the spring. At the end of March, we reached a new milestone. The people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump marked the first time after 4 indictments against President Trump that we have ever seen in our country's history a former president indicted on criminal charges. As the weather got warmer, temperatures flared. Some wanted to take our national debt hostage. To be clear, this money the Congress had already appropriated. And with a bipartisan coalition, we managed to avert an economic calamity and an economic shutdown. Fast forward to the fall, and many of the same issues arose again. Then Speaker McCarthy was confronted with an unruly small group who were willing to shut down the government after the debt ceiling debate. And for keeping the government open, Speaker McCarthy became the first speaker in the House to ever be removed. The chaos that ensued was brutal. The House went without a speaker for 23 days, the longest since 1961. And a marathon 10-week session that tested everyone's patience produced only frustration and anger. There's a reason we've had a record number of retirements from the members of the Congress at every level that we've not seen in a decade. 13 senators and representatives have already announced they are not seeking re-election in just the month of November. This is the highest number of retirements we've seen in this body in more than a decade. But this should not surprise us because dysfunction is a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. And to say that broadly, because that dysfunction is not limited to this chamber or to the House of Representatives. Over in the Senate, Senator Tuberville stood in the way of over 400 senior military officers that deserve promotion and the dignity of all of their ranks and their compensation. He held up 400 officers, putting our nation's security at risk. One United States senator thought his understanding of what was right should supersede the will of 99 other United States senators. And more than that, this one senator spent most of the year subjecting the United States military and members of the armed services to the detrimental effects of his personal whims and wishes. He had no regard for the families he put in jeopardy who risk their lives every day for our citizenry. He showed no concern for the hard work and dedication of these military officers who have focused on their careers on protecting and serving our nation. And perhaps most of all, the United States Senator tried to impose his morality on 1.4 million active military personnel in the armed services without their consent and without the advice of their commanding officers. But Senator Tuberville's story is instructive of what happens when we come together and do the right thing. Just last week, he folded. As a man of faith, I pray that the second part of the 118th Congress is more productive, is more than the first, because with only 21 bills that have been passed, making it into law in the halfway point of this Congress is on the most sluggish pace since our predecessors met in 1931 and 1932. But let's stay positive and hopeful. And with that, I would like to acknowledge the distinguished gentleman, Congressman Troy Carter, from the great state of Louisiana. I yield my time to Congressman Carter.
Congressman Jackson, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the great work that you continue to do, sir. Thank you for your illustrious words. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the CBC Special Order. And thank you, Chairman. 2023 has been an exciting and action-packed year. It's been an honor to serve as the second vice chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus under the leadership of my dear friend, Congressman Stephen Horsford, Democrat from Nevada. As a member of the Regional Leadership Council member for Region 7 and on the House Homeland Security and Transportation Infrastructure Committees, this session has been yet another one that we continue to work. I'm proud that despite the pushback from our friends on the other side, almost at every opportunity, we have accomplished historic investments for the American people. I'd like to highlight just a few of them that we challenged all year long. Environmental justice must be at the center of any action to address disproportionate health and environmental impacts on communities, especially communities of color. This year, I hosted multiple EPA executives, including the EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, and the Secretary of Department of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, and other leaders to my district. Louisiana was also selected to establish new environmental justice Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Grants, creating the first ever in Louisiana Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Center that will give communities an opportunity to have technical access to attract and have access to real resources to defend communities against environmental injustice. That's a success, the first that we've had in a long time at this level. This will provide resources to help communities and nonprofits navigate the complex federal grant process. Additionally, in Louisiana, we know better than anyone that storms are coming stronger, staying longer, coming faster, and leaving more havoc in their past, having greater impact than even ever before. Adequate funding is essential to enhance the resilience of our roads, bridges, and levees, ensuring they can withstand and recover from future natural disasters. By investing in robust infrastructure, we not only protect people's lives and property, but also better the overall economic sustainability of our region. Strengthening our infrastructure is a proactive measure that reduces long-term costs associated with disaster recovery, ultimately fostering a safer and more sustainable future for all Americans. We have continued to see promises kept as funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law makes its way to the communities around the country. I am committed to advocating for the vital funding to fortify our infrastructure, recognizing its pivotal role in safeguarding our communities against ever-present threats of natural disasters. Just as important as protecting our earth is the health and healthy minds and bodies of our citizens. Regardless of age, location, education, and economic standing, racism is the biggest barrier to mental health for the Black community. This year, I convened multiple forums where I brought together visionaries, activists, and leaders who are shaping the future in the field in the Black community. These events focus on themes including reduction in the isolation that our children saw during and after COVID, improving campus safety, and increasing access to healthcare providers. I'm committed to fighting for greater representation in industry in the mental health area where we are significantly underrepresented with providers of this level of care. Our veterans give so much to us. We owe it to them to make sure that we do all that we can to provide healthy living, productive and meaningful lives during, and most importantly, after they come home. Far too many of our veterans come home to find themselves homeless, without a job, without resources, without someone to care, after they have provided for us the greatest contribution, protecting our flanks, and making sure that the freedom that we enjoy, we know isn't free. It's paid by our veterans who put their lives on the line, who sacrifice their family time. They should get the best services when they're away and when they come home. This year, I hosted multiple VA curbside events across LAO2 to bring federal resources to the front doors of our veterans and our citizens. That includes specific help for veterans like signing up for disability pay and receiving VA benefits, assisting with FEMA casework, and getting assistance with tax refunds. This is only a small snapshot of the work House Democrats have done this year in fighting for all Americans. I will continue to put people over politics and work tirelessly for Louisianians to empower them with the necessary resources to not just survive, but to thrive. I wish all of you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and a blessed New Year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Congressman Jackson. I yield.
I would like to thank the distinguished gentleman, Congressman Troy Carter from the great state of Louisiana. Mr. Speaker, as I stand on this floor tonight, I do so as someone painfully aware of the serious times we are living in. Let the word go forth in this time and place that this nation and indeed this entire world stands on the precipice of unregulated conflict. From civil war in the Congo, to the war in Ukraine, to Israel's war with Hamas in the Middle East. The earth is saturated with violence and recrimination. And as in the case of all wars, people are dying. Tens of thousands of innocent people have lost their lives. People who have nothing to do with governmental policies that send men and women into battle, and no less the victims of those monumentous decisions. Israeli babies, Palestinian babies, Congolese babies, and Ukrainian children all deserve to live in a world where they are not judged by the details of their religion or the color of their skin. And yet this is not the world that they were born into. I stand here tonight concerned about the state of our civilization. I stand here tonight concerned about the role this country plays in being promoters of peace. I come here to this well bothered by the rise and the almost unfettered proliferation of anti-Semitism. It should never be the case that a Jewish person in this country feels like their lives are under threat because they are Jewish. We cannot allow the children of Einstein, Oppenheimer, and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel to feel as if they have no place in this country. There can be no moral equivocation when it comes to anti-Semitism in the way that this way could be a moral equivocation. When it comes to racism and anti-Semitism, they travel together because they are two sides of the same coin. History repeat with the evidence to prove that societies that begin with one will evidently end up with the other. There is Where there is anti-Semitism, racism is sure to follow. Where there is racism, there will ultimately be anti-Semitism as well. We know this is the case because hatred knows no bounds. Bigotry respects no limits. And ironically, prejudice does not discriminate. The moment you release one into the universe of our consciousness, the other will invariably come knocking at the door. That's why those of us who are leaders in this country must be clear about where we stand with respect to anti-Semitism. Whatever challenges people may have with policies conducted by the government of Israel, those concerns must not be used to avoid the absolute rejection of anti-Semitism as a plausible cultural or political solution. And I say this as a black man living in America who has had a multiplicity of concerns about the policies of my own government. Black people in America have had 400 years of learning how to separate policies from people. And while it is intelligent to question all governments, it is not, however, acceptable to allow corrosive influences to convince us that anti-Semitism is a liberating political project, because it is not, nor has it ever been, and neither will it ever be. I don't care what anyone says. Black lives matter, Jewish lives are sacred, and Palestinian lives are important, because all life comes from God. Anti-Semitism is a vile and repulsive preoccupation with hatred that has more than once manifested itself with horrific consequences. And I stand here today doubly concerned because influences, in some cases influencers, have provided the permission and the structure for people who are themselves the object of hate to participate in the hatred of our Jewish brothers and sisters. We simply cannot allow this to happen. We must declare in no uncertain terms that right is right and wrong is wrong. And that's what's wrong to hate people. It's wrong to treat people like they are beneath you. It's wrong to act like people are outside of the human family because they pray differently. And we here tonight must be highly resolved that this country to be the oasis of tolerance amid a vast desert of discrimination. We say no to anti-Semitism. We say no to anti-black racism. And we say no to anything that would subject any human being to dehumanizing language in treatment. I encourage the people of this country to hold fast to the principles of this Christmas season in which we find ourselves. Whether you are Christian or not, the principles of this season are enduring and a great degree universal. The idea that peace should be the function of our politics is something all of us should embrace. The notion that the birth of love is the only thing that can save us is something that no one should be willing to reject. In the words of Reverend Martin Luther King, when he called us a beloved community, and I submit to you tonight that it is in this very thing that compels me to be a member of this body. I still believe that what self-centered men have torn down, women who are other-centered can build up again. I still believe that truth crushed to the earth can still rise again. And I still believe that we stand up for one another. That's the only way we can have our salvation. None of us will be brutalized when we learn to love. Mr. Speaker, I now would like to yield the balance of my time and recognize the Honorable and Distinguished Congressional Black Caucus Chairman, Congressman Steve Horsford of Nevada.
I thank the gentleman from Illinois, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, for anchoring tonight's special order hour and for his tenacity, perseverance, dedication, along with Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick as the co-anchors for the Congressional Black Caucus. At the end of each year, Mr. Speaker, as members of Congress, we owe it to the American people to show our work. We owe it to the American people to show who we have been fighting for and what we have delivered on their behalf. Mr. Speaker, as the first year of the 118th Congress comes to a close, I rise today with my colleagues of the Congressional Black Caucus because the report card on House Republicans' do-nothing chaos agenda and to report on the CBC's People Over Politics agenda. Since the 118th Congress was sworn in this January, and as our caucus has grown to a historic, record-breaking 60 members, we have been fighting for the people. We've been fighting to preserve our democracy, fighting to protect voting rights and create fairer districts, fighting for public safety and police accountability, fighting to protect a woman's right to make her own health care decisions, fighting against the expulsion of black elected officials, fighting archaic traditions that block progress, and of course, fighting extremist Republicans and a judiciary who would rather erase us, who want to see us less free and with fewer fundamental rights. While the Congressional Black Caucus and House Democrats have been working to deliver results for the American people, the majority party has descended into complete and total chaos. Chaos that left our country without a House Speaker for the first time in our nation's history, and brought the People's House to a standstill for 22 days. Chaos that has nearly shut down our government and brought our country to the brink of defaulting on our national debt time and again. The American people deserve so much better than the Republican do-nothing Congress. By contrast, Democrats have offered a positive vision for our country and a real record of accomplishments to show in our districts and all across America. This is because of the investments that we worked to pass during the 117th Congress, along with President Biden and Vice President Harris, which was made possible because of historic legislation, including the Inflation Reduction Act, including the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Law, including the CHIPS and Science Law to bring U.S. manufacturing back to the United States, and so much more, including historic investments and funding for our historically black colleges and universities and minority-serving institutions. In my district alone, we just announced with President Biden on Friday a grant worth $3 billion to fund true high-speed rail to connect Las Vegas to the Los Angeles region. Finally, after decades of people talking about it, because of the bipartisan infrastructure law, it's finally happening. This will be a monumental and transformational boost to our local economy, and it will also create tens of thousands of good-paying union jobs. Jobs that will be offered to every faction of our community and small business owners, including black-owned and other minority-owned small businesses. Thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, we are connecting the more than 123 households in my state that did not have access to the infrastructure to connect to broadband, to the internet. Something as simple as connecting to the internet, something that far too many of us take for granted. There are counties and rural communities in my state that do not have that access, do not have that benefit. But thanks to this law, those investments are finally happening. And another 825,000 families in low-income households who are connecting to broadband thanks to the affordable connectivity benefit that was part of the infrastructure bill and that we're now working to make sure is included in the supplemental. Nevada is also seeing over $300 million invested to support the expansion of electric vehicle charging stations. And I'm so proud to have met just recently with a number of small businesses, including one Latina-owned business and one black-owned businesses. They are electric companies who are now, for the first time, being connected to these contracts and have an opportunity to grow their business, to hire more workers, and to be part of this new burgeoning sector. These are just a few of our accomplishments, as we still have so much more work to do. But I want to thank my colleagues from the Congressional Black Caucus, because many of these historic bills would not have been possible without the leadership and the votes of the members who make it happen, including our immediate past chair, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and the Assistant Democratic Leader, Mr. Clyburn, our Democratic Leader now, Mr. Jeffries, who literally worked towards reaching negotiation to deliver the votes necessary. But we know that as we begin the work on behalf of our constituents in 2024 and beyond, there's more work to do. And so we'll be tackling issues around Black economic prosperity and wealth creation, continuing to advocate for the passage of the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and making sure that every community is safe from gun violence, safe from over-policing, safe from hate crimes, whether they be against the Jewish community or Asians or African Americans, because we understand that all communities deserve to be safe. So I'm proud of the accomplishments, the record, that we can stand here and talk about putting people over politics, and I look forward to working with my colleagues from the Congressional Black Caucus as we continue to advance these legislative efforts for the people that we represent. With that, I yield back.
I would like to give a very special thank you to the Honorable Congressman Stephen Horsford, the Chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. We thank you for your leadership and your outstanding voice. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Lawler, I motion to adjourn at this time. Yield back, Mr. Speaker.